It's hard to imagine a time when Nintendo wasn't involved in the home console market as a maker of hardware, and yet in the days before the video game crash of '83 this was exactly the case. Nintendo's earliest foray into the video game market was in the form of arcade machines, with one of the most iconic being Donkey Kong. Released on July 9, 1981, and developed by the team of Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yokoi, the game was initially nothing more than Nintendo's response to a large amount of unsold radar scope machines as they were attempting to break into the North American arcade scene. Because Nintendo hadn't released the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America or the Famicom in Japan yet, if they wanted to get Donkey Kong into the home gaming market, they were going to need additional help. Knowing this, Nintendo decided to license out the console rights to Donkey Kong. At the time, there were two suitors for the property, Atari and Coleco. Feeling that Coleco had a bigger hold on the North American market, the company decided to grant them exclusive console and tabletop rights. At the time, this was a profitable deal for Nintendo, but in hindsight, they probably should have had Atari and Coleco develop ports for their respective systems. In August of 1982, the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong was released, bundled with the company's new system. Due to storage limitations on the system's cartridges, only 3 of the arcade's 4 levels made it to this version, with the factory level missing. Donkey Kong is also located on the opposite side of the screen on the first board, which threw me off a bit during my initial playthrough, but it's hard to argue with the game's quality. Its sound, graphics, and gameplay are all fantastic for the time, and it's definitely the closest representation of the original game released up to that point. 6 months later, the Atari 2600 and Intellivision versions were released. While I didn't play the Intellivision version for this review, RetroGamesCollector.com has little good to say of it, with statements like "Mario is yellow for f***'s sake," "the game's sound is a travesty to the eardrums," and that this version plays like a dog. I'll leave a link to their full head-to-head in the description below. Today we're here to talk about the Atari 2600 version of the game, and what a travesty to justice it is. One of the things that I love about the 2600 is the simplicity of the system's graphics. While items on screen don't always look like what they're supposed to, there's a special charm in that. Nostalgia to a simpler time when a button and a joystick was enough to produce fun for hours. Sadly, that isn't the case here. Being completely honest, it shows that Coleco barely tried on this port to make sure that the ColecoVision version dominated the market. I'm willing to look past Mario being 90% red. I'm willing to look past Pauline being horribly jaundiced. I'm even willing to look past Donkey Kong looking like he was created in paint by a 5-year-old. You know what I'm not willing to look past? These golden Arabian lamps, presumably containing a wish-granting genie that belong in games like Arabian and not in Donkey Kong. Only those aren't magic lamps. You know what they're supposed to be? Go ahead, guess. They're fire. The other big issue with this port is that there's only 2 levels that you're constantly cycling through. One of them is the level that defines Donkey Kong, and the other is, well, this. Sound-wise, the game is average, and honestly there's not much more to say on the game. If Atari and Coleco had both had the rights to make their respective versions of the game, we'd probably be looking back on both ports of the game rather fondly. Sadly, the Atari version is mostly trash, and Coleco has been relegated to bargain bin plug-and-play systems on Walmart's shelves around the holidays. Fortunately, in 1983, Nintendo released the Famicom, and along with it, their version of Donkey Kong, the version that's kept the arcade classic alive to this day. And the rest, friends, is history. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to catch all my upcoming reviews and videos as they're released.